Thank you very much. So I'll give a brief introduction to the InfraStress project. So for who was also present this morning, especially at the beginning at 9 o'clock, this is very similar to the presentation I gave this morning. So I'm sorry that there is a bit of overlap for guests participating since the morning session, but I also know that because in this afternoon session we are shifting a bit more in a demonstration mode, so geared at showing you some of the actual solutions we are piloting. I think it can be useful to at least give some coordinates about the project, what it is and what we are doing. I'll try and keep it even a bit shorter than this morning, and also not to show too much because we will actually see the real tools demonstrated live. So I'll directly go into the basic information about the project. InfraStress is an Horizon 2020 innovation action. So it is co-funded by the European Commission under the Horizon 2020 program. It was a proposal presented against the topic of prevention, detection, response and mitigation of combined physical and cyber threats to critical infrastructure in Europe. Started a couple of years ago. As Renaud said, we are now in the final phase of the project and will be running until the end of September 2021. The overall budget for the project is around 10 million, with an EU financial contribution of around 8 million. InfraStress brings together 27 partners from 11 countries. And here you have, through the logos, presentation of all the companies and organizations in the consortium. It brings together partners from the industry, research, both large and small companies and organizations, and most importantly, as you can see in the first two rows, partners which are actually critical infrastructures themselves, critical infrastructures in the industrial domain. In fact, InfraStress is focusing on an industrial domain, or what we have called in the project sensitive industrial plants and sites, or SIPs for short. These sites are typically ones which hold in some way hazardous substances, and therefore actually have typically achieved a relatively high level of safety during the years. And that's also due to regulation and to the fact that many of these are part of the so-called Seveso directive. Nonetheless, we feel that there is, in recent years and in recent times, the increased chance of potential security breaches, and in particular what we call security-induced safety cases. And so we are trying to carry out research and testing activities in this project to improve the situation and look especially at the interdependencies between security vulnerabilities. And this means, first of all, to look at cyber and physical domains as in a kind of unique, holistic way. In fact, when we thought of the actual InfraStress proposal, and also what the topic from the EC was asking, that there is this kind of what we could call silo thinking in security, where physical and cyber security are considered quite separate in many ways, organizational, management, and even from the budgetary point of view. In fact, there have been some studies which have shown how in organizations typically there is much more spending on physical security than cyber security, while on the other hand, recently the impact of cyber security has been as, let's say, disruptive and as dangerous as physical security, the breaching, of course, of security. So our main mission is essentially to improve resilience and protection capabilities of SIPs, who was in the morning session, so that we had some very interesting talks about the concepts and some of the trends and innovations in resilience. But the idea is to address resilience of potential large-scale combined physical cyber-physical threats and hazards. Hazards meaning, of course, also natural hazards, and trying to guarantee continuity, especially taking into account cascading effects. So from a more global point of view. And therefore, as a connected point, of course, security is the industrial, the actual plant, but it is also the storage facilities and anything which has to do with the ICT, which is supporting, of course, security and safety. Let's not forget that we are in a heavily digital-based era now, where we could say that almost any industrial system or any layer within an industrial system has some sort of digital component. So the strategic goals are to improve resilience of SIPs, in particular through adaptive, flexible, and customizable set of security measures and tools. Adaptive, because we want them to be able to adapt to many different industrial situations as they exist and as are also represented in our own project. Flexible, which is connected, of course, to adaptable, because they have to be potentially interchanged and interconnected in different ways, and customizable, because they have to allow to process and take into account different kinds of data, different timings, different granularities, etc., etc. Also, we want to allow effective collaborations among sensitive industrial plants and site operators. And in particular, as I said earlier, also between the physical and cyber world, so collaboration, but also I would say tight bonding of these domains across interconnected critical infrastructure, because industrial infrastructure is interconnected with the rest of the infrastructure. And then also between how the infrastructures which rely among each other. And we have in particular in InfraStress 2 pilot cases which are showcasing this very effectively. And therefore, our goal is essentially to deliver an open framework which is flexible, as I said earlier, able to adapt to future evolution. We have new sensors, new technologies, new detectors, which are being developed at a very fast pace and following very fast, technological development, so that we can have detection technologies, the related data feeds, the analysis of this data, and then deliver decision support systems. And also we want to be able to integrate with existing systems. For instance, as I said earlier, we are SIPs are typically quite advanced for what pertains to safety, and they have already systems in place, and we want to be able to plug into those systems. So we want to, of course, fully exploit the technology innovation which is currently available, in particular supporting a culture of critical infrastructure potential protection, even in the industrial domain. We also the call, of course, we responded to, highlighted how probably there is still a need and a gap, maybe with respect to other kinds of critical infrastructure. And so we're trying to fill that gap. And one of the paradigms we want to push within this culture is, of course, a human-centric approach, where through all of the technology we are integrating in the framework, in the open framework I was talking about in the previous point, we essentially want to support decision support. We want to have decision support and also enhance human expertise, because in the end, it is people who are running the organizations, operators working in the organizations and in the plants. We also aim to push forward a methodology which is based on indicators for security and resilience. We want to have these indicators and the methodology embedded within ISO and CEN standards related to ISO and CEN standards, and also proposing enhancements to educational and training programs. The methodologies and indicators we hope will yield breakthroughs and benefits also in terms of costs and savings, because we know that security and safety can be quite expensive business, and so that resource planning and optimization and on resources with related savings are important. And so we want to try and help this kind of infrastructure not only understand how to improve the resilience, but how to best invest so that they can improve this resilience. And therefore, we are relying on existing technology and solutions which come from all partners, in particular technology partners and research partners in the project, from previous experiences in research, current projects, but tailoring and developing a new approach for the industrial plants. This high-level architecture is a picture which we have been updating during the project, but was our baseline already since the proposal. And quickly going from the bottom towards the top, we start from the actual detection systems, which, as you see, include some gray unmarked boxes, which, as I said earlier, take into account existing systems because we want to be able to integrate existing systems. And then we have a set of detectors for both physical threats and hazards, as well as the cyber. I won't say much more about this because you will actually see them in action in the demonstration sessions which will follow my presentation. Of course, all of these detectors are generating huge amounts of data, which is very heterogeneous, very diverse, has different kinds of formats, granularity in terms of time scale. In some cases, we have near real time. In some cases, the time scale is kind of more diluted. And so we have to integrate all of these detection systems, and in particular the data they produce. Once it's integrated and kind of processed, we convey it in different parts of the framework. Of course, we historicize it so that we can be further processed and analyzed. But then at the heart, in a way, if you see in the middle of the screen, what we want to have is some situational pictures. So dashboards with analytics, multi-dimensional descriptive analytics, so that the users can actually identify attacks and have some indicators about events, but also about the resilience. And then also have some cyber physical threat intelligence, again, which is taking into account different elements. But then there is, and of course on the right you can see that to actually interact with this data, we allow users various forms of interaction, including some pretty innovative ones such as a method in virtual reality, but dynamic dashboards, dynamic analytics, which each user, each organization, infrastructure can actually tailor and modify as best suits them and as best covers their industrial case and their safety and security case. Then going to the top, we go kind of a step forward based on our, let's say, what I called scientific grounding, which is through a set of methodologies and risk assessment tools. We want to use the data which has been collected, processed, and even used within certain potentially threatening situations to inform and improve the assessment about resilience, about risk, so that monitoring, early warning, response mitigations can be continuously improved. So as you can see, we have in these above layers a set of arrows which are going to and fro. So from the middle part and going up, because essentially what we have is that this data is then sent and elaborated within these methodologies, but also to actually assess various, for instance, the resilience, we are having the actual users input some data. And all of these assessments and the results of these assessments are then kind of fed back so that, for instance, situational picture can be informed in a way or improved exactly by the scoring that that particular infrastructure has on resilience. So for instance, if an infrastructure has a certain high score and is particularly resilient on one element, maybe when some event happens, the situational awareness will not consider that element so critical, while it will highlight another element which is critical, also because it is detecting that from the resilience score that that score is not maybe as good and should be highlighted to the operator, so that a mitigation action should take place. Maybe this is a bit overwhelming in this presentation up to now, but I'm sure that with the demonstration of the actual tools we have, when you'll see it, it will become much clearer. And so these demonstrations, which you also see today, they are, now that we are in the kind of final phase of the project, coming thanks to the piloting activities we are carrying out in InfraStress. And so since the beginning, we wanted, excuse me, to make sure that this project was also user-driven. So not only, technology solution-driven, not only made by, the researchers and the tech people, but really made for the infrastructure operators, for the people who will be using those tools. So we have 5 pilots, which I think is easier to group in countries, because we have some actual critical infrastructure partners, but also some clusters around each country which are supporting these partners, and they are located in Italy, Portugal, Ireland, Greece, and Slovenia. And so through these pilots, we are essentially trying to capture all of the most relevant input from the stakeholders. And also we have these pilots so that we can have the best coverage of a variety of high-impact multi-threat scenarios, which, as you will see, range from natural disasters to cyber-physical attacks. And just to give you a quick overview, the Greek pilot is led by Motor Oil Hellas, and it is at a refinery, so in the petrochemicals domain. The second pilot in Ireland is led by Depuy Synthes, a franchise of Johnson & Johnson, who are a medical manufacturing plant. Then we have in Italy, Carmagnani in Genoa, in the city of Genoa, who is a chemical storage and site and terminal. Then we have in Slovenia two partners who are actually a critical infrastructure, and they are the petrol infrastructure for storage and transport, and then the port of Koper. So here we have this pilot, which is strongly demonstrating also the interconnection of 2 infrastructures. And in a similar way, but in a completely different scenario, we have our Portuguese pilot, which is based within the municipality of Barreiro, and Barreiro municipality is also actual partner in InfraStress, and within its territory is the SGL partner, who is an industrial partner with industrial facilities located within the territory. So in this case, again, we have 2 partners which are interconnected, in this case an industrial site and a municipality, so a territory with a strong involvement also in this case of the citizenship of the with this infrastructure and with this scenario. So that essentially ends my presentation. I will just plug for you this CoIP platform, which stands for Collective Intelligent Platform. And this is a kind of content sharing / social platform which we are making available for any stakeholder, any researcher, practitioner, expert who is interested in the domains of critical infrastructure, security and safety. Of course, our focus is on industrial plants, but also we'd love to get on here anyone who is working in this domain at any level, so from the industrial down to the research. The subscription to this platform is free and open to all. We already have quite a few experts signed up and contributing. We offer the possibility to also publish and publicize your work, your research, your results on this platform. And so please go to the link and ask to join if you would like to be part of this, and also as a follow-up maybe to this workshop and the topics which will have been discussed here. And you can find more information about the CoIP on all of our online presence. So starting from our website, infrastress.eu, plus we have Twitter, LinkedIn, and a very nice YouTube channel where you can also go and see some videos with interviews, demonstration, very detailed explanations of the technologies and solutions we are integrating within InfraStress. So that ends my presentation. I tried to make it actually a bit shorter than foreseen, but I'd really love to actually give the floor to my colleagues who will be demonstrating this in concrete, so that instead of my slides, you can see InfraStress in action. And so I would like to thank again all of the guests who are here, and I hope you really enjoy the rest of the session.